Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thanks for joining us today. This is the University of Chicago, the Crown Family School of Social Work Policy and Practice, and this is our webinar today for our Social Work, Social Policy, and Social Administration AM program. I am Ron Martin. I am the Director of Admissions here at the Crown Family School. I've been here for about 7 years, and I will be hosting the webinar today. We have a number of guests. I'm going to do some introductions, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to move here. This is the agenda that we're going to be following today. So as you're reviewing that, I'd like to mention a number of people who are joining us today. So Aaliyah McKessie, Assistant Director of Admissions, and Emma Toomey, our admissions specialist. Also joining us from the admissions team is our student ambassador, Danny Rogers. They are a current student here. Danny, you second year now, is that right?
Yeah, correct.
That's correct. Thank you. Also joining Johnny Lassalle, our Director of Career and Leadership Development. He'll be talking a little bit about the Dean of Students Office and programming. And we're really excited. Jenny Weiser, an alumna of the program, is here also to kind of share her experiences. So as we move along, I want to share just a little bit about the history of the Crown Family School. So we were originally the School of Social Service Administration, one of the first schools of social work to open up in 1908. In 1920, we affiliated with the University of Chicago, and in 2021, we had a name change. So we changed our name to the Crown Family School of Social Work Policy and Practice, and we are a top-rated, top-ranked school per U.S. News and World Report here, in the country. So I wanted to ask too, I'm kind of curious, we have a lot of people joining us today, but if you wouldn't mind, tell us in the chat, where are you coming from? State, countries, we're always interested in sort of knowing like, where's everyone coming from? Let us know. Davis, California, LA, fantastic. I will be in LA over Thanksgiving. Florida, Chicago. A couple from LA. Oh, Seoul. Oh, and in Chicago. Great, Iowa. This is a nice stretch. Thank you. Burlington. I've been there. Nice. Ann Arbor, Milwaukee. A lot of places that I've been to. It's good to see you all here. Thanks again for joining us. Okay. A little bit about our program. So basically, we're going to be focused on this first program. This is a social work program. And what is our program? Well, it's for people who are wishing to pursue a career or assuming a leadership role and in diverse areas across a range of social sectors that cross individual, family, community, management, and policy levels. And this is domestically and globally. And our program is equivalent to an MSW. We can talk a little bit more about the difference between an MA and an MSW as we move along. We also have a program in social sector leadership and nonprofit management, referred to as the SSL, it's a master's program. And this is for students who are interested in working directly within an organization and are interested in learning more about how, not just how an organization works externally with populations, but how it works internally, thinking about org theory, thinking about structures, HR, budgeting, fundraising, philanthropy. So all those types of things. Also wanted to mention that we do have a dual degree program between the two, between social work and social sector leadership. And then I did want to mention that we also have a doctoral program. And the doctoral program is designed for those who are postmasters who are interested in pursuing a job as a researcher or as a faculty member. And so what is social work? And we will often point to this quote from the NASW, the National Association of Social Workers. The primary mission of the social work profession is to enhance human well-being and help meet basic and complex needs of all people, with a particular focus on those who are vulnerable, oppressed, and living in poverty. So it's a focus on the person and their environment. And as we go through the curriculum slides that are going to be coming up, like we'll talk a bit more about how that actually plays out in practice. The other thing about social work, and this is going to be repeated a number of times, we think about different levels. So some students might want to work at the micro level, thinking about sort of direct practice, working with individuals, families, thinking about careers that might be in counseling or casework. There's a wide range of those, but those are two examples. Or thinking about working at the meso level, and that would be, practicing social work within organizations. So again, thinking about how the social sector leadership degree kind of comes into play, but the social work degree and working with groups. So thinking about community organizing or working with local organizations. And then the third level, the macro level practice, the higher level intervention, and that's thinking about careers in advocacy, administration, or policy. And again, we're going to talk quite a bit about the curriculum and how our curriculum really sort of brings about all of those things at the same time in an integrated way. Okay. Now, a couple of sort of slides about a little bit about the program. Here we have some demographics about our program. So you see, our student body is represent, we have 38 states and 14 countries represented. You can see the average age is 28, but the average age is 28, but the range, it really sort of, it spans from those coming directly out of undergrad to older adults who are probably looking for, career changers. So there's a wide range of those coming into the program. We can see our sort of the race ethnicity breakdown as well as the gender breakdown. Okay. Now, I wanted to share a little bit about the academic calendar. In that, a lot of people don't necessarily know that we're on the quarter system. Most students are very used to the semester system. On the University of Chicago and the Crown, we are on the quarter system. I'm going to talk a little bit about the different programs, but I did want to mention, so for students who might be interested, who have a BSW, who are interested in our advanced standing program, that would be the summer start, and they would take all 4 quarters. For those who are coming into either social sector leadership or the doing the dual degree, or in the social work autumn start, so the full-time, the part-time options, the students would start in the fall and would take the fall, winter, and spring quarter of classes. And you can see the dates to give you sort of a sense of a timeline. And then we also wanted to share the weekly schedule. So for first year students who are starting in autumn, the full-time and the part-time social work program, you'll see in this grade, year 1, those students are in classes on Mondays and Wednesdays, and they're doing their field placement hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays. In year 2, that flips, and this would be the same for advanced standing students, where students would be taking classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then would be in their field placement on Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays. Okay, so now I want to shift and talk a little bit about the programs themselves. So I did mention we have an advanced standing program, and this is for students who have a BSW from a CSWE accredited institution and within the past 5 years. Now, 5 years is kind of the general standard, but if there are students who are interested maybe 6 or 7 years beyond the completion of that BSW, we'll definitely consider them for admission. It's a 1-year program, and there's 1 advanced field placement. Again, noting it's the only program with the summer or June start. And we like to bring in about 25 to 30 students per year. This past year, we had a great class. We actually brought in 38 students this past year. And so I know our field team was very busy looking for the placements for them, but it's really great. So it's like an automatic cohort with the students starting all together in the summer. We also have a full-time program. So for the full-time program, there's no specific academic background required. So we get that question quite a bit, like, do I have to be in social work? Like, absolutely not. So most of our students, like the majority of students, are not coming from a background, like an academic major in social work. They're coming from almost all the social sciences, sociology, anthropology, and the humanities, history, theology. But also students are coming from business backgrounds, from journalism, communications, from fine arts, performing arts. So it's a very wide range of academic preparedness and backgrounds that students are deciding that they want to go into social work. So it's really great because it really makes the classroom experience very interesting for students to bring their own perspectives and their frameworks and lenses into the classroom. It's a 2-year degree, so it's 3 classes per quarter over 3 quarters per year over the 2 years. And then there are 2 placements. There's more of a general field placement in the first year, and then and the field team will be able to talk a little bit more about that when we get to those slides. We'll talk more about it. The second year field placement is a little more specific, and it's a little more centered on your own interests and what you want to do. There was a core curriculum that is completed with a cohort. We want to bring in about 180 to 85 students per class, so the cohorts can run to about 25 students. Okay. So we also have the part-time option. Again, there's no specific background required. And for the part-time, as opposed to 2 years, this is now a 3-year degree program. And so instead of taking 2 classes per quarter, it's 2 classes in a week per quarter over the 3 quarters over the 3 years. But there's still 2 field placements. One is done in the first year, and the second one has a little bit more hours. that would start taking place starting year 2 and into year 3. And we want to bring in about 15 to 20 students in the part-time option. It's really sort of designed for working professionals because a lot of the classes are evenings or weekends. So for those who are wishing to work full-time or possibly even part-time and do school part-time, like this is a great option for them. And then I wanted to share a couple other enrollment options. So we do have, I had mentioned at the beginning, like the dual program with the Master of Knowledge in Social Sector Leadership and Nonprofit Management. We also have a dual degree program with the public policy at the Harris School of Public Policy with the MPP there, with the MBA program at the Booth School of Business, and with the MDiv at the University of Chicago Divinity School. Okay. So I'm going to shift and talk a little bit about the curriculum. So our curriculum, I'm going to read a little bit of this, but the curriculum is designed to respond to changing societal needs and problems, but it's also designed to equip our students to prepare them with the critical skills, the competencies, and the values needed to make greater impact. And also, the curriculum is designed to help students have a greater choice when pursuing careers. So there's more than just what we're training our students to do and teaching them. It's more than just like, here's how you go do social work. It's about, here is a skill set, and it can be applied into thinking really broadly about what does it mean to be a social worker? Where can a social worker, someone with a social work education, show up and do good work, right? I had mentioned that there is an integrated curriculum, and it's more a holistic approach to social work education and training. One of the first things when I started here at the Crown Family School is in talking with faculty, it was the notion that sometimes we would ask students to select, do you want to be in clinical, direct practice, or do you want to be in social admin and policy? And the sense was like, we all know that policy impacts practice and practice impacts policy. So we actually recently, last year, redesigned the curriculum to be a lot more reflective of that notion. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the upcoming slides. But I kind of want to put it out there. We have much more of an integrated curriculum that really is blending sort of like all the different levels, the macro, the meso, and the micro in the social work education. So our students are having exposure to all of those things and all the ways to think about social work. Right? And again, this body, like the students, it's offering our students a comprehensive skill set. It's focusing on intercultural awareness, and it's also emphasizing a deep understanding of the policies and social structures that impact social work and social welfare practice. One of the things we think about is the way in which we are grounded in the social sciences. So it is that deep understanding. It goes back to the whole idea of research, using research and data to inform both direct practice and with policy creation and implementation. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit, I'm not going to go through all of these, but here are 10 of the key curriculum characteristics of our curriculum. So we had talked a little bit about, we're giving the foundational social work theories and concepts, and we talked about the levels of practice. I had mentioned social policy, direct practice. We'll talk a little bit about field education. One of the tenets of the school is like, that education is based on experience, and that's why field education is so important. It's not just field education, though, and I think Johnny is going to be able to speak a little bit more about what experience can look like within Crown. I wanted to mention, too, this multidisciplinary perspective here on the, I don't know if that's your left or right-hand corner, but here of the top box there. A lot of our faculty, most of them are going to have their MSWs, but so many of them are not trained at the PhD level, at the doctoral level in social work. Instead, they are actually trained in a number of disciplines. So I know it's about 12 social science disciplines that are represented by our faculty that include economics, sociology, anthropology, political science, policy, higher education. So again, as with the students, bringing in a range of sort of framing and lenses to think about what their experiences are and how they're thinking about social work, that's also true of our faculty. Faculty are bringing their own academic preparedness and their own thoughts about what social work can be into the program. And there's just a huge benefit because it really sort of grows and expands the notions of what social work could be. I also want to talk about the research and evidence-based practice. I was kind of alluding to this before. And again, it's about how do we use research and data to partner with individuals, families, communities, organizations to affect positive change, and also thinking about our grounding in the social sciences. So that's one of the reasons why we are an AM and not an MSW. We're more than just an MSW of professional preparedness, but the AM sort of implies like there's a research aspect to our degree. And so students will be doing research as a part of their coursework, but they could also be doing research with some faculty directly. Okay. So here's a little bit about our new curriculum. So I had mentioned that the program is 18 classes, and here's how it breaks down. So we do have the 9 courses that are the core requirements. And again, sort of like the social interventions, the direct practice, and the programs on policies. Those are the things that are really bringing together, integrating sort of like the direct practice and the social admin to see how they integrate together. We have diversity class, research classes, and then we will be asking students to select a pathway. And we have 5 different pathways for students to select. So every student will select one. So we're not necessarily a generalist program per se. We are actually asking our students to specialize. And you'll see here, these are the new pathways that we have on hand. So children and families, the disrupting poverty, the global health, the integrating health, mental health, social care, the transforming justice. And they are really sort of broad-based sort of pathways. So for example, if you were to come in, a student comes in and says, I want to work with teens. That's very broad. That's a population you want to work with. Now, in what sort of format? Did you want to work with teams sort of like you could work in the systems context? You could be thinking about how does poverty and inequality, social exclusion impact teens? What about teens on sort of a global scale? What are the experiences of teenagers across global cultural realms? Thinking about, in health and mental health, how does that impact teens? Or thinking about transforming justice, and thinking about decarceration or violence prevention. There are different ways for students who want to work with a particular population to think about how they might find the pathway for them. And then within the pathway, students will select a level of practice. And again, this goes back to those levels that I started with. So do you want to work more on the clinical level, more on the micro level, more on the meso level, or more on the macro level? So thinking about the clinical, the organizational, or advocacy and policy. And then the last 4 classes, they're electives. And here's a really fun thing about the electives. So a student could come in and they could take all their classes, they could take electives that are in their pathway at their level of practice, and that's it. Or students could take classes in their pathway at different levels of practice. Or students could take classes in different pathways at any of the levels of practice, including their own or any of the others. Or the other option is students can take up to 3 graduate level courses in any of the divisions at the graduate divisions at the University of Chicago. So I think in any given quarter, maybe about 15% of our students are taking classes that could be in the social sciences division, at Booth, at Harris for public policy, within divinity. Those are kind of the 4 more popular areas, but we do have students who are taking classes throughout the graduate divisions at the university. So the options for those 4 electives is really wide. So you can really sort of narrow your focus, or you can really expand your focus, depending on what it is that you want to do. Okay. And then the other thing I'll mention here is our certificates. So we do have a couple certificates. These are for students who have been already admitted to the master's program. So they're not standalone. You have to be in the master's program, but you can select to participate in them. We have the GFAP, the graduate program in health administration and policy for those who are interested in healthcare. And we have both domestic and global tracks for that. We have our Kiphart Scholars Program in Global Health and Social Development. And again, that's sort of understanding social problems, policy, and on-the-ground practice in a globalized world. And participation in that also means, it can mean in the immersive track, a field placement outside of the US, so an international field placement. Our school social work certificate for those who are interested in becoming a school social worker. We have our advanced alcohol and other drug counseling training program. We also have a certificate in gender and sexual studies. That's the one here that's not affiliated directly with Crown, but our students can participate in. Okay. And then I'm going to finish up this part with a little bit about research. And as I mentioned, research is a key component to an education at Crown. And again, it informs and guides the best practices for education-based social work and social welfare policy. So thinking about both the research on the academic level, but also thinking about, the professional preparedness to go out to the world. And so some of the skill sets that come with research, and I know from doing my own research when I was in doctoral program and in my master's program, I did a number of these things. It could be qualitative interviews, coding and content analysis, data collection, data analysis, literature review, drafting reports, transcribing recordings. I know that in my graduate career, I did all of those things at some time or another, both at the master's and the doctoral level. In some of the ways students might be involved with research here at the University of Chicago, we have research assistantships. Some students might find funding through the university's Office of Research Administration. And we also have a number of university-based institutes and research centers that our students might participate in. So for example, like the Crime Lab, or our centers there's one for cultural policy, health policy, human rights. So there are a number, it's not an exhaustive list, but there are a number of institutes and research centers here at the University of Chicago that our students can find a place to do research in. Okay. So we are field placement. Do we have someone here from field placement joining us?
We sure do.
Hey, Susan, welcome.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Sorry I jumped on a couple minutes late, but my name is Susan. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the director of field education here at the Crown Family School. And I just wanted to give you guys a little bit more information, if you can believe it, about another piece of our curriculum. So as you know that in order to attain your MA or your MSW degree here at the Crown School, half of your curriculum is coursework and the other half is field education. So this is a requirement from our accreditation body, the Council of Social Work Education, that you will sort of fulfill a certain amount of areas of practice within the field. And so I know Ron went over, the different student types that we have studying here at Crown: full-time, part-time, advanced standing, things like that. But so let me give you a breakdown in terms of what this could potentially look like for you. So within your first year, we actually secure your field placement match for you. So what that means is, sort of whenever you accept in the spring, you would complete what we called our field application, which gives our matching committee an idea of sort of the population preferences you might have, setting preferences you might have, as well as your learning objectives for what you would really truly love to learn within field placement. And again, like, field placement is such a huge piece of your experience here at the Crown School. It's a huge piece of your experience within social work education, where you're actually sort of taking what you're learning within your courses into practice. And so it's really important, right, that you spend time on that application. So our matching committee is able to suggest and then put you in contact with a field placement that aligns well with a multitude of factors, including some that I just mentioned, as well as taking into consideration where you think you'll be living for next year. Yes, our matching committee actually Google Maps the address that you list to an agency that we think matches your interests well, to ensure that you have a commute of less than an hour. So then in that first year, what you'd be doing is, as Ron mentioned, you'd be in courses Monday and Wednesday, and then you'd be doing field placement on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The exact opposite. Second years are on contrasting days, right? So they're in placement Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And so for your first year, we're really looking at having a field placement that is foundational, right? So some of the things that you can expect to do in that field placement are likely case management, likely skills groups, or psychosocial education, maybe some home visits, depending on the setting, obviously. And then also a good bit of assessment, diagnosis. But you're not really doing clinical work during your first year. And I just want to make sure that folks have that understanding, is that, how can you do clinical work if you haven't yet taken your clinical coursework? So during your first year, you're doing sort of direct practice, as well as some administration, maybe program evaluation and research. And then it isn't until that second year where it's a much more specialized kind of field education experience. So as Ron mentioned, you'll actually be selecting your second year placement, right? So you'll be going into our agency database of over 800 partners, and applying to 3 or 4 different agencies is typically what we suggest. And that will be much more aligned with the pathways that you've chosen, as well as the levels of practice that you've chosen as well. So clinical versus the 3 other different types of pathways for that are more administratively leaning. And so, in your first year, you're doing a slightly fewer number of hours. In your second year, you're actually in placement for another day, specifically if you're in a level of practice that's much more micro or clinically leaning. In terms of part-time day options, you're in field placement for 8 to 10 hours per week, roughly, approximately. And so you're in field placement, you're in field placement for a longer period of time during your second and third year if you're a part-time day student. And then if you're a full-time, or excuse me, during your first year of your part-time, then you're actually only in placement for that year. So um, we have a little bit of flexibility, obviously, in terms of what your pathway looks like as a part-time day student versus full-time day. And so what we would do as a field education team is that we would be meeting individually with our part-time day students to ensure that you're completing your field education sort of at the same sort of 3-year timeline. And this is just a wonderful graphic, I think, of just some of the placement options that you'll have and where they're located within the city. You'll notice that, we have a lot more placements located on sort of the north side of the city. We have expanded a lot of our placement options to be more community-based and smaller nonprofits on the south and west side. And we have a huge range of different types of partnerships with folks. So we partner with really large nonprofits like Feeding America, the third largest school district in the country, Chicago Public Schools. We have a lot of hospital systems as partners, again, and then also smaller, more niche kind of field placements, such as like art-based field placements, like Sky Art is a great placement of ours. Changing Worlds is another art-based placement. We are onboarding a bunch of new sort of environmental justice placements, as well as agencies that primarily serve Asian American populations too. So yeah, that basically is it for field. We're super excited to work with you and support you as you make this decision. So please reach out if you have any additional follow-up questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Susan. And just to kind of reemphasize, like what's really nice about the field education team is like how strongly they support students through the process. So when you're going through your education and you're selecting your classes and you're doing all this stuff, like you are never sort of left behind by the field education team. They are there to support you, and they really, really do. Since we have a student here, Danny, I'd like to invite Danny to say a little bit more maybe about their field placement experience.
Yeah, definitely. So I am a full-time second year student right now. I can concur that the field office is amazing. They have not left me behind, from the student perspective. But my first year, I was placed at MedVet, which is a ER and specialty hospital for animals. So that was a pretty unique placement that I really loved. I primarily there was doing grief and bereavement counseling with folks who had either lost their pet or were going through some sort of trauma with their pet, or their animal was hospitalized long term. So it's kind of like a direct counseling thing. We also did like rounds in each department each day and sort of went into the ER to check in on folks. As a social work team, we were also support to medical staff there. Veterinarians go through a lot, so we were kind of there to debrief with them and sort of do short-term interventions with them as well. And then at that placement, I also had an opportunity to run groups. So we ran like a pet loss support group there. And it was nice to just be a part of that because the veterinary social work world is pretty new. So being a part of collecting data for that field was really nice to do. And then this year I'm at Practical Audacity, which is a private practice in Humboldt Park that primarily focuses on sex and gender therapy. So at my placement this year, I am doing individual and couples counseling with a full caseload of clients. And so, yeah, definitely more clinical this year. I have all the responsibilities of a regular therapist. I do all the paperwork and things like that. And then I also get the opportunity to network for myself and sort of help build my caseload, which is also a great experience. And I'm really enjoying my time there so far. So I think that's all I have.
Great, thanks, Danny. I want to ask, I've been sort of like looking a little bit at the chat. I just want to say, were there any sort of questions that we could answer now, kind of on the front half of the presentation? Emma?
Not
Yep,
so far.
great.
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right, thanks. Okay, so now. Okay, so now we're going to shift and talk a little bit about student engagement and development. And Johnny Lassalle is here. We have a quick question, Michelle.
Hi, sorry, I was trying to find the hand person. Um, so a question in regards to those who are doing part-time, and doing sorry, I don't know what the word is, but I'm clinicals. Um, how does, I know
Yep.
it says like 1 or 2 days, like 8 hours. Like how does that work? Like I work at CPS and like my first year, do I have to take off a whole year? Like I'm a bit confused.
Yeah, so what would happen for part-time day students obviously would be dependent on whether or not you are in a particular certificate program. Also, or yeah, a certificate program, which would then, like I know that you mentioned working within CPS. So, like the PEL certification program, you need to complete a certain amount of hours within a certain period of time. And so we would want to ensure that you're connecting with Jenny Mead, who's the director of school social work, to ensure that you have a field placement that fits along with, again, the coursework that you're taking as well as the work that you're doing outside of Crown. So I know that's very specific to that particular track, that certification. But in terms of just generally for part-time day students, we are going to be working with y'all kind of individually to make sure that the agency that you're connected with, particularly for your first year, is able to be, kind of provide the days and times and the flexibility needed to be able to kind of put the 8 to 10 hours in towards field placement during that first year, in addition to your work. Your second and third year is when we have to be a little bit more creative because depending on whether or not you're in a more micro or clinical level of practice, you're going to be needing to fulfill more field hours. And so again, with that, when you're interviewing for your field placement for your second and third year, you are essentially choosing an agency that is able to kind of accommodate your work-life balance. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. That clarifies it.
Yep.
Okay, so now I would like to introduce Johnny Lassalle, who can talk a little bit about student engagement and development here at Crown.
Good afternoon, folks. My name is Johnny. I use he, him, his, and I am the Director of Career and Leadership Development here at the Crown Family School. But I am also part of the Dean of Students team at Crown. So I'll sort of be just walking us through the support resources and services that sort of encompass the Dean of Students office suite. So essentially, you'll see on the left, these are some of the buckets that we have. I like to say that this is that we are central in supporting students. So while student, but up until graduation. I also like to think that we align very closely with the school's mission of fostering a just society through research and service. I'm also honored to say that we take a student-centered approach, and that we pride ourselves in being what I like to call student-centric, right? You know, some of the supports and services and resources we provide through DOS are admissions, although there's some changes happening there, academic advising, there's orientation and graduation, scholarship management, and we sort of act as a liaison and connect students to campus resources. So as far as academic advising, we have 2 full-time committed folks that conduct one-on-one academic advising for current students, and we also have someone that does that for PhD students as well. We also provide a ton of group advising sessions. One thing about the Dean of Students office is that we are heavily committed to providing as much information and communication as possible about all of the support resources that we have, not just internal to Crown, but external. Because one of the great things about being or joining this program is that you're not just a Crown Family School student, but you are a student of the University of Chicago. In addition, we have the office is responsible for those orientations and sort of graduation. We provide a pretty comprehensive onboarding of what your experience would look like here when you become a student at the Crown Family School. As soon as you are here, we are able to share and provide as much information so that you can be successful during your time here at Crown and beyond. We also oversee graduation. We call it hooding here. So that's some of the main sort of initiatives that we do. We also have scholarship management, or we're responsible for scholarship management. So we have someone, committed to helping us sort of manage some of those pieces, who's our program analyst, Devin. We also, like I said, we're liaisons and connect to campus support services, whether that be from a financial perspective or whether it be from a wellness perspective, or even from an educational or civic engagement perspective. You are able to tap in as a student, you're able to tap into the wealth of knowledge, initiatives, and programs that we have to offer here. And then I also like to sort of highlight career and leadership development because I oversee that area. Essentially, CLD provides professional and personal engagement opportunities while you're at a student. I'll start and focus on the career side, or rather the career arm. Some of the ways we do that are by one-on-one career coaching sessions that I conduct. May I add that Crown is one of the only or few schools of social work that has a me, someone that is committed to supporting you on your career development journey. I will also like to add that career and leadership as a sort of arm of Dean of Students is also a very unique area, given that we like to sort of intersect the idea behind career development and engagement with sort of leadership, which I'll talk a little bit more about that. So my one-on-one career coaching sessions typically take about 30 minutes. They cover a topic, a range of topics, if you will. We talk about career explorations, as mentioned. This is a interdisciplinary program. A lot of our alumni find themselves in a lot of different industries and a lot of different sectors. So oftentimes the conversations that I'm having with folks is where do you see yourself in, right, after your time here at Crown? We also talk a lot about career resources. So we have some of those foundational pieces, career content that I like to say that you have access to, whether that be via slides or via recordings. Some of those topics include interviewing tips, how to write an effective resume or cover letter, and one that I think we like to sort of emphasize, building professional relationships. In addition to that, we have some pretty signature events that come out of our sort of office, we have our informational interview day. That's actually going to be happening in a couple of weeks, where you students have an opportunity to connect with alumni and or professionals in the field for 30-minute sort of info sessions to talk about career trajectories, or rather their career trajectories, and provide some practical advice for current students on their career journey or career aspirations. We also have a Washington Week program where we sort of bring over current students over to the Washington, D.C. To primarily meet with alumni that are working in the government sector, some that are working in nonprofit or think tank spaces. Essentially, this is a premier professional development experience. Another unique, sort of program or initiative to the Crown Family School. You'll get to meet with alumni, leaders, in government, where you'll have networking opportunities. You will also have time to conduct informational interviews. We visit on site, to listen in on some career, presentations, among other things. We also have employment information sessions and workshops and alumni panels. One thing, since we have a vast alumni network, the school's been in existence for quite some time. We have a ton of employers who are looking to hire specifically Crown Family School students. And they will come on campus, or they'll conduct these virtually when they're looking to hire for their full-time or part-time positions or contract-based positions. One of the great things about these is that you often don't get a chance to meet with or learn from the hiring manager about what the role is. And the employment information sessions are a great way where you can sort of get a leg up on that interview process, right? And then on the leadership development side, as I mentioned earlier, the idea is to intersect the two. And the reason behind that is we really do believe that you should sort of have an understanding of yourself as a leader from a personal perspective before you embark and engage in communities, right? Or even heading into the social work or social sector profession, right? So the idea throughout leadership development, or as part of leadership development, is personal identity development from an identity conscious and identity formation lens, right? So we particularly have these two new initiatives that will be where we will be complementing that. We have Chicago Weekend, which we're calling a leadership experience, and actually, Dr. Susan, I will say, is going to be our first featured, leader with her nonprofit, the ACE Project. Yes, wave, Dr. Susan. She also is a doctor as well. So just wanted to add that fun fact. So we're really excited to have current students sort of engage with work that's happening in the community, but also meeting with leaders in that community to understand their leadership approach, so that you can sort of understand your leadership approach while you're at Crown and beyond. We also host a bunch of other programming, cool stuff. We have Student Government Association here, as well as Crown student organizations for those who are looking to participate in student leadership opportunities as well. And with that said, I think that's my spiel on student engagement and development. I don't know, did you want to open it up for some questions, Ron, or did we want to start?
I think we're getting, let's hold the questions for now. We'll come back, but certainly please feel free to ask any questions in the chat. So thanks, Johnny. I often like to share, when I think about a graduate education sort of in three components. Like one is the academics, you're going to class. The second is field, where you're having that experience. But the third is really about the programming and what the school offers to support you in the academic realm, the professional preparedness, professional training, but also like the career development and the networking and the leadership skills. I know for myself in my graduate programs, both at the master's and doctoral level, I really had very little of any of that. And so I'm always amazed at the amount of work and the amount of supports that Crown has for its students, because I think it's tremendous. Okay, and then in this next slide, we just have a couple photos of some of the events that we've had around Crown. You see a couple pictures from Washington Week that Johnny had mentioned, a couple different speakers. One of our alumni, Eugene Robinson, had shared his a documentary. Jessica Darrow, who's an instructor here, had talked about Afghan evacuees here in Chicago. We had our photo from our advocacy day as well. And then, okay, I thought I had a different slide. Here's a slide I thought I was going to see next. Okay, so here is also, we have a lot of civic engagement. So the University of Chicago has this whole civic engagement office, and we have a civic engagement liaison here in Crown. Now, of all the things, I'm going to highlight two things on this slide. So Adrian Talbot, who is our associate dean, he's in the Office of Community Partnership and Impact. He takes students on what they call civic treks. So I don't want to say like they're field trips, but they're kind of like field trips. And so they are meeting with organizers, policymakers throughout the Chicago area to kind of find out what they do. So for example, last year I took some students to meet with a couple cabinet members in Mayor Brandon Johnson's cabinet. They also met with a couple organizational leaders kind of on the west and south side to talk about how their organizations were providing supports and resources for young Black and brown men as far as career development, career training, degree completion. This quarter, I know that they're going to be going up to Evanston, which is the city just north of Chicago, to meet with the mayor there or officials there to talk about their reparations program. So it's another interesting way that our students are able to get out into the world, to get out into Chicago, to see how, again, like the micro, the meso, the macro, all coming together in sort of the real world, real time experiences. And then I also wanted to mention that we have a partnership, like we have Obama Scholars. We have the Obama Foundation Scholars Program. So we have about 8 students per year who are participating in that. So there is an application process and students are typically participating in their second year. I know we have a lot more information on our website for that. Okay. So we had a question, what are sort of the areas that our alumni are participating in? And so here we have a list of a number of different types of areas or types of study, sort of job placement places that our students are going to. And with that, I would like to invite Jenny as our alumna representative to say a few words about, her time at Crown, what she's doing. I'd love to hear as much as you would like to share about your experience and how a Crown education has impacted your career.
Great. Thank you so much, Ron. So my name is Jenny Weiser, and I graduated from the Crown Family School in 1999. And that was with a focus on family support at that time, administration, child welfare policy. I was taking courses in both clinical program and policy during my 2 years, just to, I really appreciated that blend and understanding how policy and programs impact the children, youth, and families that we serve at the ground level. Now, when I was at the Crown Family School, one of the things that was really fascinating was during my second year, since at that time, my focus was with what I just shared with you, I was able to do a child welfare honors research project with a professor at that time over at Chapin Hall, and just learning about how the child welfare legislation and policies, again, impacted the children, youth, and families that are served from a foster care policy and adoption lens at that point in time. I also had some wonderful internships. My first year internship was at a child welfare foster care internship through, at that time, Jane Addams Whole House Association back in the late 90s. So I was learning about case management and groups and clinical and all that great stuff during that, for that first year direct care practice. Now, my second year internship was administration for children and families. I had a child welfare internship, and I learned about legislation and policies at the child welfare internship and how they shaped, again, the child welfare policies and practices at the field level. So as a child welfare intern, that internship became my full-time career. So I graduated in 1999. But then in 2001, I became a child welfare program specialist at the Administration for Children and Families, which is part of the Department of Health and Human Services in 2001. So I am still there today. From 2001 to 2003, I was a child welfare program specialist working with the state child welfare programs to ensure positive outcomes for again, youth and children in foster care and adoption, and really looking at it from a systemic policy level and working with partners at the local, state, and federal level to promote positive outcomes across different states in Region 5. Then in 2003, again, I'm still at Administration for Children and Families. I became a youth services program specialist working with federally funded runaway and homeless youth organizations. These are community-based nonprofit organizations, and I work with them to provide guidance, training, and technical assistance based on the federal laws, regulations, and statutes to ensure they're in compliance. I also work with these different grantees and nonprofit organizations to lift up their best practices, to identify challenges and gaps in services, and to not only work with my nonprofit organizations, but to solve the problem by working with local, state, and federal partners to strategize ways to help these runaway and homeless youth and try to prevent and end youth homelessness. So what I want to go back to is, again, my internship was amazing. It became my federal career. And that's where I am today. And I so appreciate Crown Family School. And if it weren't for that, I would not be loving and being passionate about the work I do now and learning so much from Crown Family School, all these amazing skills, all these amazing faculty and field placement instructors and my fellow students and other professors to get to where I am today. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jenny. That's great. Okay, so I know that we're kind of coming up on time. We have about 6 minutes, so I am going to move quickly through these next couple slides here. So these are just the application requirements. Obviously, there's an online application. We ask for all the transcripts. Let me unspotlight Jenny here. Okay, so we ask for all your transcripts, and you can submit copies of those transcripts with your application. So we don't need the official versions. We just need the copies that you can upload into your online application. A resume, a candidate statement, and 3 letters of recommendation. Now, we asked if for those who have graduated within the past 4 or 5 years or so from their undergraduate to include 2 academic references. But we know that students, there could be sort of like challenges with getting faculty. So if you have 1 academic statement, but you're looking at a couple like work references, like that's fine. What we're really looking for with the letters of recommendation are people who know about your ability to do graduate level academic work, or have some experience with like how you've done research, or maybe with some sort of professional social work kind of geared type of work. I'll also mention we had a whole webinar. It's on our YouTube page about sort of like tips and tricks with submitting your application. So you definitely could go back to our YouTube page. We can drop the link there where you could watch that for some additional information about thinking about how to maneuver through the application and what things to think about. What you'll see on this list is what's missing is an application fee. So we're not having an application fee this year for applications at the master's level. So if you're applying to our social program, come on through. There's no application fee for you this year. And then here's just a list of deadlines we have. So for our social work, the full-time, part-time, and for advanced standing, the first deadlines is coming up in December 1st. We'll give you to the 2nd because December 1st falls on the Sunday. January 15th For advanced standing students, the January 15th is the final deadline. Okay, and okay, so cover quickly a little bit about the cost, just so you know. So the cost for our current tuition cost is $51,723 for the year. There's also a yearly student services fee. There's a one-time transcript fee that allows you unlimited access to as many transcripts as you like. We also have two things that are optional. So the UPass that provides students with the opportunity to travel every quarter using the CTA, so the buses and the train system in Chicago. It's really, really great. I have sort of like something like that through work, through the HR. It's such a great benefit. You don't have to worry about, using the train. You can use it anytime. And then also health insurance. So for the full-time students, the university requires all students to have health insurance. You don't need to use the university's health insurance plan, but if you don't have one, that option is there for you. And then other expenses to consider, room and board, books, personal supplies. In a couple weeks, I forget the date, I am going to be doing another webinar that's going to specifically focus on cost and how to think about financing your education. So that's going to be coming up. I know it's available on our website, so students can register for that one now. And then also what I'll cover in that is financial assistance. So the University of Chicago, or the Crown Family School, we will offer scholarships that apply directly towards tuition. On average, the average assistance scholarship award is about $20,000. A lot of our students supplement, or domestic students, those who are eligible, will supplement the cost with loans by submitting the FAFSA. I think the FAFSA should be on track to open on December 1st, but we'll see hopefully this year. We don't have the same see the same challenges as FAFSA, those submitting FAFSA experienced last year. Some of our students might find outside scholarships. I always recommend, be an advocate for yourself. Google, look up scholarships for those looking at social work, thinking about social justice organizations, or social justice scholarships, thinking about maybe the type of work you want to do. Are there scholarships for those who want to work with, in youth and violence prevention, with system impacted people, decarceration? So there are a lot of different ways to think about outside scholarships. So cast a broad net. Some students have work study that's kind of tied back to the submitting the FAFSA and the federal student loans. Some students might find research assistantships, so working directly with faculty who may have money to support an assistantship. And as time goes on, you can reach out to us in the admissions team, and we can sort of help connect you with faculty or make recommendations of who you might speak to see if they have any sort of research assistantships available. I mentioned loans. There's the federal student loan. Some students might take out private loans. University of Chicago also has some fellowship options. We don't directly here in Crown, but the university does have some fellowship sites that you could look at. Okay, and so that closes out the presentation part. I also did want to invite Danny back to the stage here to maybe talk a little bit more just kind of generally about their experience. Like why did you choose Crown? How has your overall experience been? You had talked about field, but how has the rest of your experience been?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed my time at Crown. I love going to school here. I originally chose it first and foremost because I wanted to stay in Chicago. I was looking at two or three different schools and decided ultimately on Crown after I sort of like had a meeting with a student ambassador. I went to orientation, did things like that, or the new student admittance day is what it was. Um, and I just got a feeling that I was welcomed there in talking with people around a few of my identities. I'm a first gen student, and I felt like Crown was very open about all the processes going on, and they were willing to help me through the process, which my family can't really do because they haven't been to college. And also, the conversation around gender and sexuality was very open, and I identify as non-binary and queer, and so that was important for me that I would feel safe and welcomed on campus. There was also an emphasis around self-care that I also value and wanted a school to sort of align with. And then I really felt that the faculty and staff, and I still feel this way, were invested in my success. Like they weren't just coming there to do a job or teach a class. They actually like wanted to create relationships with students and be invested in their experience at Crown. And I definitely still feel that way today. So I've enjoyed, yeah, everyone that I've met, all the classes that I've taken. Some of my best friends have been people that I've met through this program. And it's great also to be in this role as a student ambassador. This is like a work study for me, and I think it's been cool to have the experience to get to give back and sort of talk to folks who are considering coming here as well. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thanks so much, Danny. So I know that we've come to time, and I can definitely stay on a little bit longer. So if people have questions, but I know people might need to depart. So I am going to stop the screen share here and then open it up to so yeah, still a lot of people here. So thank you again for everyone who is coming today. Are there any questions? I know that I've been seeing a lot of activity in the chat off here out of the corner of my eye. But are there any questions that maybe I can answer specifically, or if anyone wants to come off mute and ask any questions, please definitely do. Yeah, Olivia.
Hi. Well, first of all, thank you. And also I wanted to ask about the diversity of faculty members,
Mm-hmm.
specifically professors and research sort of opportunities. Because something I really value in a school is kind of like I suppose the diversity of the faculty members.
Yeah, I don't have the exact numbers and breakdown by any sort of like identities. I mean, we do have a fairly diverse faculty in knowing that with a number of faculty of color were hired in our recent hiring spree. The last 2 years, we brought in, what, 6 or 7 new faculty and a number of faculty of color. So I'm sorry that I don't have the actual breakdown of like sort of percentage numbers for you. But I can share that it is absolutely not an exclusively white faculty. That there is definitely some there's a racial and ethnic diversity, racially wise or identity wise, here at Crown amongst faculty.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else, Lucy? Oh, I think you might be muted. Okay.
Hi, I have a question. Is there any particular reason, maybe based on the quarter system, that another school might start like in the winter and then you guys start in the fall?
Yeah, we start in fall because largely it's based on the core sequencing. So students in based on the core. So there are set classes that take place in the fall, and then in the winter there are part one and part two of the same classes. So for students to have started, so it kind of comes down to the curriculum design and the preparedness of students through the core. And so that's why with the core sequencing, why we have the autumn start only and not a winter start.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, I have a question. I've gone to a few other seminars for like master's programs, and some of them have the opportunity for students to start like in the spring semester or quarter, or I guess in a quarter system it would be like starting in January. Is that the true for the University of Chicago too, or does everyone usually start like in the fall?
No, everyone who's not in advanced standing would start in the fall quarter. So everyone's coming in and taking the same sort of core classes, and then also taking that first quarter foundational diversity course.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Lucy, I want to give you a chance. Did you figure out your unmute? No, I don't know. There might be something with the sound in your computer, but definitely if you're available, if you're able to type the question in the chat, please do. Keisha?
Hi, I just had a quick question as well.
I know you guys mentioned that everything starts in the fall. Is there a way to maybe take a couple classes before the start of the program? Because I'm not coming from a social work background, so I
Mhm.
know I'll have to like start completely over in a sense. So is there a way to maybe take a couple classes before and then start the program if admitted, or how does that work?
Yeah, for students who, might not be sure if they want to do like launch into the program directly or still thinking of career changes, not thinking about like, do they really want to do social work or are they prepared to? There is an option through the University of Chicago to take classes through the Graduate Student at Large program, the GSAL. And students can transfer a couple classes in from that program. So they would just take electives. So students taking GSAL would not be taking core at all. But there is that option. So students could take some Crown classes either in winter or spring in preparation, but you would still need to apply and be admitted to the social work program. So participation in taking G-Cell classes in Crown is not automatic admission into the graduate program, the master's program, but that could be an option for those who aren't sure.
Okay, so just one more question. For that, will I need to do two separate applications? So one for the graduate student at large and then one for the actual master's program?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Ron and Danny, Lucy, put in the chat their question. Danny, would you mind answering that? Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I was typing it out, but I'll say it. I currently am planning to stay with my current field placement if all goes well. We've sort of chatted about that a little bit. So that would be my plan in terms of like my job search after graduation. I think being at University of Chicago has an advantage because of their network of folks that I feel like in that sense, for me, it's been worth the financial investment of the people that I've met and the opportunities that I've been able to get with field placements. Obviously, it's a big investment, and I don't like some fields make more money. So I think it's like something that like personally you would just have to decide what's worth it for you. But for me, it's yeah, I mean, I found something that I love to do and have been able to connect with folks that kind of have similar mindsets. And I definitely feel secure in networking with folks if I didn't decide to stay at my field placement to find other job opportunities as well. So for me, that was why I ultimately decided that it was worth it to invest in Crown, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Jenny, is Jenny still here? Or did she pop out? Okay.
Sorry, your question. I'm my private chat. I was distracted. What did you say?
No, is Jenny still here? It looks like she left.
Um,
I was gonna ask her about
hmm.
career stuff, but no, it's fine. Other questions? Oh, Jenny just said she had another call and she needed to hop off. So thanks to Jenny for participating. Other questions? I know we're about 10 past right now. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for attending. And hopefully we will see an application from you soon. So we'll send you a couple sort of follow-up emails. But yeah, if you have any questions or you want to meet with anyone on the admissions team one-on-one, we definitely can set up private appointments. Danny is also available to have one-on-one conversations. So if you have additional questions that we didn't cover, new questions that come up, definitely feel free to reach out to us either email or by setting up an appointment. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. Okay, stop record, Emma.